Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Shut up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, this is the overview. I just like to recap. Okay, we have done the fundamental of management, including the skill set, roles, and different responsibilities of the management. And also we talk about the ethical, social, and more importantly, the corporate governance, right? Legal responsibility. Also, we have shown you, you have done a case study, and then hopefully you have a better understanding already by now. What can go wrong if the top management especially do not conform to a set of proper corporate governance. They engage in insider trading, stock manipulation, right? Not for the interest of the stakeholder, but for their own interest by maximizing the profit out of their own stock holding. Yeah. So today topics will belong to this planning process. 3.5, as I said, we'll start off the 3.5 first, then we go back to the beginning of the planning topics like vision, mission statement, and so on. Okay, the topics we're going to cover include some of these items like globalization, right? And why even at this stage you want to learn about international management, and that as a management, right, what are the expectations to manage all this globalization issue, right? And then more importantly, you need to understand why company expand in overseas markets, right? And what are the factors to consider, and how do they do it? You know, because there are various ways to venture into overseas, be it joint venture, franchising, or licensing. So it depends on individual company interest. They can adopt different way to enter overseas market. Okay, also that we have learned, especially more recently, right, ever since Donald Trump time until today, getting worse, the trade war, right, between countries like US and China and the alliance. Okay, so you need to understand to promote free trade, what are the organizations and trading blocs around the world? Right, especially for Singapore, we are export-driven kind of economy. So all these trading blocs are important to Singapore. Okay, culture difference. I will leave it to you to research during your projects. So in your projects, you are expected to contrast between the two country. That means China versus the foreign investor country. What are their cultural differences and so on? You know, like let's say US company investing in China, right? So you are supposed to contrast between the two. Okay, so that is part of the research for your project one. Okay, globalization is a key in today's business, right? Because with the travel become so what you call common nowadays, right? And also with the developments of the e-commerce. Okay, virtually nowadays business, right? When you talk about business, there is no border. Okay, so globalization, no matter what kind of industry, what kind of business you are in, right? it will affect the way you do business, right? Okay, just show you the trend for e-commerce development, right? You know, Amazon, right? They started off in 1994 with the humble e-bookstore. Okay, today they are the biggest e-commerce company, right? And if you look at the trend of the e-commerce market in US, is being the biggest market, is projected to in 2021 to be 4.8 trillion. Okay, so it's and it's still growing, but lately all these e-commerce companies are not doing well, like Amazon, even the market leader, Amazon are not doing well. Do you all know why?
Inflation.
Yeah, partly inflation and also the interest rate has gone up from interest rate has gone up from 0.25% beginning of the year, right? In US to now 4%. How many times? You know, so with the interest rate going up, people will be more careful about credit card spending, you know, because you need to pay interest, right? And borrowing costs also. So as a result, there had been quite a drastic slowdown on all these spending over the e-commerce, and you can see that Amazon used to be like more than $2 trillion market value, and now it's just barely above 1 trillion. So despite that, the potential going forward is still good for e-commerce. Okay. Okay, why, you may ask, as a student like you, and also perhaps even you may have just graduated, going forward, right? You may not be dealing with international issue, right? But indeed, you see.
Hi, sorry, can I just make an announcement?
No.
Shut up. So later, after class, there's an I appreciate event downstairs. There's like popcorn, nachos, ice cream, like basketball game, and pay for free. So you can come after class. Okay, bye. Stop my talk.
So please. What kind of student union is that?
Student union SCG
You are our witness, you say that to us.
Okay.
What are you doing?
My name is Ali
Do
Daisy.
something,
Ali Daisy.
Ali Daisy.
You see over there, normally. Register number should be either 1 or 2, so extra both.
Okay, so I was just saying that even you have entered the job market after you graduated, right? You may opt for local company or local multinationals, right? So even you are based in Singapore, you will come across the situation where you have to deal with foreign customer, okay? And also a lot of our company, right? They have foreign suppliers, so somehow you have to deal with overseas companies, right? Be it suppliers or customer. Okay. A lot of time, if you work in a multinational company, do you know what is multinational company?
Yes.
What?
The biggest companies, multinational.
They expand their,
Like some example.
they expand their franchise, McDonald's.
Okay. Okay. Multinational company. Some of these big names like HP, IBM, Apple,
Amazon,
Google, Microsoft. All these are multinational companies.
So is it McDonald's also?
They mean to say they have business subsidiary all over the world, multinational,
Yeah.
including Singapore lah. Some of these companies have.
Isn't McDonald's MNC also?
It is.
Yes, yeah. So you work in some of these companies, like time to time they may impose you to overseas HQ or other subsidiary, right? To either help to develop product and bring into Singapore, or set up the processes to transfer to Singapore. So very often you will need to basically engage with their foreign subsidiary in terms of product developments or other processes. Right, I can still recall during my time working in the industry in 1989, I think it is. So that was quite a challenging work for me because I work in automation services company dealing with helping company to automate their products. Right, so it's quite a big company supported by Economic Development Board. So at that time there was this US company. You know, last time, like, you don't have a hard drive. It's not so common yet. They have this tape drive. Tape drive. So this company is making a tape drive. It's a US company, right? They have plant in Singapore, so they want to automate their production processes. And they found that if the product is not designed with automation in mind, right? So it's very unproductive to automate, right? Not cost effective. So they engaged us as a company, right? To work, to work with their US product development team. Okay, and one of the key members there, work with them in the US. So it's quite a challenging task because as an Asian, you work with them, the expectation is there. So we provided the automation knowledge to complement their product development team, so that the product can be designed in automation. Hello. Hi. Yeah, I can't talk when you become noisy, you know. So these are just some of the pointers. Even you are at the junior position, you will have to deal with them, right? Somehow. Okay, then why do company invest in the overseas country, right? So nowadays, especially China is the number 2 economy, right? And in terms of manufacturing, right, they are the number 1, right? So a lot and also with their growing potential, right, in terms of their population, right, is 1.4 billion. So the market is huge for a lot of products and services, including car. They are number 1. Electric vehicle also they lead the world in a lot of areas, even in the high-tech area and AI, everything. They are leading the world, so right. So these are just some factors that affect why country invest in overseas, right? So number 1 is suppliers. Okay, availability of the supplies. So nowadays, a lot of companies, they do not produce their own components, or even don't assemble their products. Like for example, iPhone, right? Where do they make it? Where do they make iPhone? You guys love iPhone, right? Yeah, majority produced in China. So who are the contract manufacturers? Okay, Foxconn, one of the Taiwanese company, right? They have plant in China. Okay. So why Apple choose to what they call produce a part in produce a phone in China?
Cheaper.
There are cheaper one like Vietnam, India. Why not?
Because China have more better technology, more factory.
cheaper workers.
China they got more.
India even cheaper. Indonesia can be
No sure, but
cheaper.
their food are
Is it because they got more
What's the racist?
but their food are
their market better?
Their food are example in Vietnam. What?
The racist.
No market. As I say, a lot all this food produced right, not solely for the China market. China market only about contributing to like less than I think 10%.
China want to win favor with China.
Not true.
Is it not true or true?
Not true.
Not true.
So what is the main
Because the parts come from
reason?
China.
So you know
Okay, I was just about to tell you why Tim Cook and Apple. I mean, why they have chosen China as a manufacturing base there is precisely because of the availability of all these component suppliers, which take years to build. You don't look at iPhone, but you take out iPhone, you can see that apart from all the electronics components, they are also precision metal plastic part. So all these take years to build. It's not as easy as you get a pool of cheap labor, you can produce it. You know. So why China? How China built the expertise is beginning of year 2000. They have a lot of these what they call suppliers already started in Guangdong area to produce electronics or electronic products. So over the years they had developed and built a big pool of all these specialist suppliers capable of producing precision plastic part, metal, and also assembly of electronic components. So it's not only in terms of cheap labor cost, but you need a pool of suppliers to be able to support their manufacturing. Okay, just to share with you, during the Lehman Brothers, right? Do you know Lehman Brothers financial crisis? Maybe you have. You're born the year 2008, 2009. And at that time, this Lehman Brothers, one of the biggest investment banks, gone bankrupt and triggered the crisis. And as a result, there is a world recession. At that time, U.S. unemployment is like 10%. Now they're talking about 3%. Right. So at that time, Obama was the president, right? U.S. So he's trying to solve this high employment problem. So he was discussing with the then CEO of Apple, right, Steve Jobs. He was still around at that time. I think he passed away in 2016 or 2017. Yeah. So at that time he was the CEO. So Obama was talking to him. Hey, how come Apple, which Apple is one of the biggest company, right? And having iPhone sales mainly in US. US is the biggest market at the time. Oh. So why not you set up a plant in US and we can offer you attractive tax incentive, big land, and make available the labor to you. So you know what is the answer given by Steve Jobs? Yes or no?
No.
Why no? The reason. Yeah. Why not? You give you a big land, give you attractive tax. Maybe no need to pay tax for first 5 to 10 years, and they can guarantee you a pool of labor. Okay. So why no? Yeah, the answer is no. Steve Jobs told Obama no. Cannot do it. So why not? And then also the customer are in US side, so you're close to your customer. So why not? Why not set up a plant in US and produce it there? Since the government is also going to support, like Obama government. Why? Anyone? Too high labor cost. Okay, the labor cost Vietnam is higher than in China lah. But that is not the main reason. Okay, the reason he said no is because, as I told you, the number one point. It's not just about getting labor and can do the job. You need the supply chain able to support the entire manufacturing of the iPhone. So many components, right? Hundreds of components. So in US, there just isn't a strong pool of this sort of specialist supplier able to produce precision metal part, electronic components, and also assembling of these sub-assemblies. So you say, even you give me all the land, labor, and tax incentive, and also market close to the market in US, he's not able to do it. Apple cannot survive, right? So you know how important is the supply chain. Okay, it takes years to build. And now there's a US trade war between China and US, right? So a lot of companies are facing the threat of tariff levy on their product. Is trying to move to India and Vietnam. Okay, including Apple, they are trying to move out. So they are trying that ever since Donald Trump initiated the trade war, but until today not successful. It was a failure because simply the same reason. They could not build the supplier base to support this manufacturing. Have you heard about also the more recent Joe Biden has declared a ban on the US semiconductor technology to China? Okay, so as of now, Taiwan Semiconductor, the Taiwanese company dominated 80% of the market share for the high-end semiconductor. So to the US, it become a threat, because one day China will take over Taiwan, right? They are being threatened if this TSMC, the number one chip maker, is come under the control of China. So you threaten US. So what happened is that they are trying to force TSMC to set up plant in US, and it's ongoing. And even for the TSMC, right, their top management also say it's not easy to set up in US for the same reason, because you need all these pool of suppliers to support them, right? Of course, the other one is the new markets, like for some products, right? If they are really saturated in their home country, right, they would want to explore new marketplace, especially for China. It's a huge market, right? Yeah. Of course, lower labor cost is also important, especially for certain products. Okay, those low value-added products like making sport shoes, apparels, all this, right? You don't need the technology and supplier support that much. So you can see that all these countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Cambodia, part of China. Now China is no longer the cheap labor country. The inner land still cheap, the western part. So all these countries are becoming attractive for this kind of low-end products, for low labor cost. Other than that, financial capital is very important because definitely when you invest in a country, set up businesses, you need to have all these financial capital available to them, right? Okay, so that's also important. Like Singapore, for example, why we are so successful in getting all these high value added industry like aerospace, petrochemical, pharmaceutical, financial services company. Why? Why Singapore has been so successful in attracting some of these foreign investment in the right area, not the labor intensive, but capital intensive. Why we are so successful? Because we don't have, I mean, even despite the fact that we don't have, our land are expensive, right? And our labor is also expensive. Why despite that we are being able to attract all these high-end manufacturing company like EV, like Hyundai also agreed to set up a plant here. What's the reason? Can somebody answer? My question is, why Singapore, being a small country with expensive land and relatively expensive labor, able to attract all these big names in the high-end manufacturing to come to Singapore, like petrochemical, like pharmaceutical, like EV, aerospace, all the big names come to Singapore. Why? What's the reason you think we are being able to?
There's many connections here.
Sorry?
There's many connections here.
Spending what?
Connection.
Connection to who?
Better business opportunities.
Okay, connection is not wrong this answer because Singapore, later I'll talk about the trading block, right? Free trading block where you have a low or zero tax when you trade all these trading blocks. And Singapore is the one that being really well connected to all these trading blocks. It's part of the trading block members. So that's one reason, but more importantly is the number 4 point, access to financial capital. Because our financial services industry is so well developed. We are the top 4 at least. Now maybe we beat Hong Kong already. Number 3 financial center in the world. Right, so well developed, and also the government very smart. They make available all the tax incentive to attract them. Okay, so like as I say, 5 to 10 years is tax free. Right, a lot of these companies like in the pharmaceutical, aerospace like Rolls-Royce, right? All these companies, yeah, all these they are happy to invest in Singapore because of that. So because Singapore, you cannot depend on the labor intensive industry. You have to go, you have to strategize to attract all this high-end manufacturing. So financial capital is very important also, right? Okay. Lastly, as I say, avoidance of tariff and import quotas. Okay, some of this company, right, especially you see, for car, especially automobile, right? Let's say you were to import a car, right? Let's say Japan were to export car to Singapore, right? Or even to China. Made in Japan and export to all these overseas market, right? Firstly, the shipment cost is very costly. Secondly, all this country, right, will impose tariff. Like Singapore, you see, we are in terms of car price, right, we are the highest in the world. Not one of the highest, we are the highest. What's the reason? Why our car is the most expensive in
They want to
the world?
promote public transport.
Okay, the motivation is to control the car population, but also there are other reasons. So why it become how it become so expensive? Is precisely through all this tariff tax. Right, the car like a Japanese car like Toyota, what they call Corolla, right? Or even Camry. It's costing about 10,000. The cost, I mean, from the Japanese sell to the dealer in here, right? It's only costing about 10,000 Singapore dollar. By the time you buy it, right, it become 100,000, right? Yeah, this import tax levy on it. On top of it, the COE, right? COE now can be many times more expensive than 100,000. So that's the reason that a lot of product you cannot export your way to the overseas country because of tariff. So that's one very important incentive for them to invest and set up a company there. Especially for automobile industry, right? China has got the biggest market in the world, and a lot of companies, including the European company, Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, all these, right, including US company and Japanese company Toyota, all invested heavily in China to set up joint venture. Okay, and more recently Tesla also. So that's precisely the reason. Tariff, to avoid the tariff. Okay, to sum up, why company expand internationally, right? Supplier very important, yeah, and also new markets. If your market already saturated, you want to look for biggest marketplace in overseas. Low labor only applicable to the low end product. It will not work. It may not work for all product, especially the high end manufacturing. Yeah. Trade barrier, as I say, yeah. So that is linked to the trading block that we are going to discuss later on. Okay, let me show you how important is China, why you are asked to do a project in company investing in China. If you were to look at this world economy based on the GDP, though this 2019, the reason I didn't take the more recent one is because the COVID had distorted some of the picture. So 2019 may be a more accurate indication of the picture on GDP. So you look at, of course, US is still leading the world with 21 trillion. I think now is maybe increased by about 10% already. So you see they dominated with 24%. Huh? So therefore they control the whole world, right? When the US dollar interest rate go up, the whole world suffer, right? The US dollar is so strong that it makes all the rest of the country have to depreciate the currency. You know, because basically US dollar is one of the important tools for them to lead the world. Because when you do international trade, like 80% of the time you need to make use of US dollar to transact. So therefore they can control the whole world with their currency. And next in line is China, you see, is 14 trillion. You know, in year 2001, they were like 1-2 trillion. You know how many times they have grown, you know? So Japan, right? Japan is third. You know, in 1990, early 1990, they already 5 trillion, and until today,
It's not 5 trillion.
it's still the same. They have not been able to grow. They have suffered ever since their property bubble burst in year 1990. Until today, they had been either zero growth or very very minor growth, like 1%. So they have not grown, and China at that time was only less than 2 trillion, you know. And today they have surpassed Japan to become number 2, and it's so far away. Now they are like 14 trillion versus 5 trillion. And if you were to look at the more recent one, they're already close to 16. And Japan is still stay at 5 for the last 20 over to almost 30 years. You know? So you see that China really developed so fast in terms of the economic development. Yeah. And become the most important market because of their huge market, right? With their growing high income group, their population 1.4. But if you look at the major city near the coastal area like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou area, the people are as rich as Singapore or even richer than Singapore. Right? The property there in Shenzhen is more expensive than Singapore. You know, so can you imagine? Yeah. So the high earner, high income group is growing very fast. Therefore, it's a very attractive market for the foreign company to enter. So so a lot of all these foreign companies are entering the China market. Yeah. You look at Singapore, where are we? You see, Singapore is only 0.4 trillion, right? Contributing to 0.5% of the world economy, and China contributed 16%. Yeah. But we still beat Malaysia, you know. You know? Yeah. Slightly above Malaysia, 0.36. Singapore population only 5 over million, right? Versus Malaysia is about 5 times more. Yeah. So we are still doing very well as a country, as a small country, right? So the next in line is Germany, but lately they have suffered because of the Ukraine war, right? The whole Europe is going to enter into recession. Yeah. So it's a big trouble for all these European countries. And India has taken over Britain to become number 5, number 6. You know, UK. You see, India used to be only 2.88, and now the most recent one they has taken over UK to be world number 6. Yeah, because UK, the economy is very bad now. The whole European country, including UK. But if you were to look at real income adjusted for the purchasing power, that means to say the cost of living, if you were to consider China is actually indeed higher than US in terms of GDP.
But Singapore higher than the rest of the world.
No. Singapore, the cost of living is quite high also. So you were to look at that, Malaysia will be ahead. You see, Malaysia will be ahead of Singapore because the cost of living in Malaysia is lower. So the real GDP is higher. Just like China, indeed, you look at the cost of living, factor in, their GDP is better than US. Okay, in terms of manufacturing sector, right, when you say GDP is include everything, right? So you look at just manufacturing, you can see even more drastic increase for China, right? So they dominated close to 30% of the world manufacturing. So why the inflation has gone up lately is partly because of the COVID situation that hamper a lot of this country, including China, ability to produce their goods and services. Okay. Okay, after look at the reason and motivation for foreign country to invest, we have to look at also risk factor also. There are risks also when country go overseas to invest. Okay, generally these are the major risk factor. Political, very important, political risk. Like lately Malaysia, right, they've gone through a period of instability, right? Changing of government and so on, changing of policy, right?
Yeah.
Just across our causeway only, why a lot of people get caught in their property investment. That is precisely during the Mahathir time, took over briefly, right? Lately, basically he implemented a policy that deter foreigner from owning the property there. So there are a lot of restrictions. As a result, nobody going to buy the property there. You know, they have a huge project called Country Garden, like the big island that developed like a big what do you call it? Independent town, you know, like island, you know, but now it's a ghost town now.
So they try to make budget Singapore.
Yeah, they try to sell this project as next to Singapore, you know. They attract a lot of China investors.
So the cheap people version of Singapore.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the project failed because of all this politics, right? When a new government come into place, during Najib time they encouraged, all the China, all the Chinese to buy all this property and develop the projects, right? But when Mahathir took over, right, he changed the policy, right? Discouraged ownership by the foreigner, so the whole project died off. Now it's a ghost town, you know, halfway developed. Yeah. So political factor is very important. Yeah, and also if you were to look at China lately, also gone through some political issue, right? There is a slight change in the direction when that causes downturn in some of these major investment in China, right? Because they will, especially Hong Kong, right? You see, they implement a rule that they're going to curb the profit made by all these companies, right? So they have to like bounce back certain amount of profit to help the society. It's like a bit of communist kind of ideology. So that's a big political risk factor. You were to doing a projects in doing investment in China, like you may want to consider this as one of the political risks, right? Because China as a big country, right, in order for them, for the communist party to continue to rule the country, right, they need to take care of the poor, right? So they say that certain company cannot make too much profit, right? So they're expecting some of these businesses, including foreign company, to bounce back some of the profit to contribute to the society. So this may be part of the political risk, right, with the changing direction by the government. Okay, foreign exchange risk is important, right? It can be two-way, like if you are export-driven company, right, you would hope to have your currency weakened. Like Japan, why their currency depreciated so much? Because they are hoping that the weak currency can help them to spur their export. Their product can be more competitive, like Japanese cars sell to China, Singapore, right? If their yen is weak, then when they sell to China, Singapore market, like it will be cheaper than Korean car, for example, cheaper than the German car by a lot. More attractive if you are exporting your product. So depreciating your weak currency will benefit, okay, for those export-driven kind of economy. And also, if you invest in, you look at a lot of third world country, right, like South America, like Argentina or this, like, their currency can be like depreciating like 50%, right, within months. Why? Because all these countries, if they have a weak foreign reserve, right, they are subject to all these currency depreciation, you know. So foreign exchange risk is very important, especially those countries has got a weak foreign reserve. Do you know Singapore, right? Such a small country, right? Our foreign reserve is ranked number 6 in the world. 300 billion in US dollar current reserve. Okay, so even better than UK, you know. UK, such a big country, only 100 over billion. Yeah. So can you imagine recently, like UK, they suffer what they call their bond, right? Government bonds suffer crisis. Yeah, because of the wrong government policy to cut taxes, right? As a result, caused the bond price to crash. And it affect a lot of pension funds. Yeah. So foreign reserve is one important factor also when a country decided to invest in a particular country. If they have a strong current foreign reserve like Singapore, right, they can be assured that our currency will be stable, right? Which indeed is the case. Other countries like, you know, Korean depreciated close to 20%, but Singapore only depreciated about 5%. It's one of the top performing currency. Okay, other things like government policy change, right? Like tax policy and so on, like foreign ownership, all this will impact your investment. Okay, so political risk, foreign exchange risk, government policy, all these play an important part when a company decided to invest overseas. Okay, we'll talk about the motivation to attract country to go overseas, and also the political and also the risk factor. So how would company invest in overseas? There are various ways they can invest in overseas with different risk factor. Of course, the lowest risk one is the global outsourcing, like Apple. Literally, they do not set up any plant in China. It's through their contract manufacturer like Foxconn and so on. So the risk is lower. You just do the global outsourcing, because you only commit least capital. Okay, so anything go wrong, you can always shift to another country, which what happened now is what happened now. They're trying to shift to India, Vietnam, right, without suffering the losses, right? So global outsourcing. The other one is just export your way out to a country, but of course with the tariff or this, right, this become this may not be attractive to certain business, like I mentioned, like car export or this, right? It's very difficult. So you need to produce in the country. Okay, licensing and franchising. Okay, let's look at franchising first, that you may be more familiar. Can you name me some business or even small business is run based on franchising? Okay, McDonald's is one good example. So a lot of food industry, food company, even hawker, right? Even like the old junkie, right? Those selling curry puff, you can see a lot of stores set up in different places, right? So all these are franchise. That means you have to pay royalty for every dollar of sales you produce, but you make use of their recipe and their brand name. In return, right, you have to pay royalty for every dollar of sales to the company that provide this franchise. Okay or not? Let's say you want to set up a store. In fact, a lot of hawker stores also quite popular franchise. You know, hawker store, like Katong Laksa, right? You can see nowadays more places selling this. Yeah. When it becomes famous, it allows you to do a franchise using your brand name because you have a established customer base, right? So let's look at some of the reasons. Franchise can be attractive versus your own that you invest everything on your own. So for reason that the brand is proven, so that you already got ready customers, right? And also in terms of marketing and also purchasing cost, purchasing power, right? You can purchase as a group under the franchise name. So you save cost on the purchasing and also marketing cost, right? So this are very important factor why people choose to invest through franchising. Okay, so even for like McDonald's and all the hotel, big name like Holiday Inn, Mandarin Hotel, all these are franchise also. No? Worldwide you can see the same hotel brand. Okay. So talking about McDonald's, KFC, all these are mainly franchise also. But do you know how McDonald's make their money?
Real estate.
Yes. Who said real estate?
George.
Wow, that's a guru. Yes, you may think selling hamburger, right? Yeah, but actually the real money comes from their property, real estate. You know, they are very smart. This McDonald's is a company, they are very smart. They are all out to scout all this attractive property, right? Especially during the financial crisis time, they scoop up a lot of cheap property at a very attractive price, good location, and then they are able to rent out to all these franchisees, right? So they collect attractive rental income from them. In addition to the McDonald's, the burger business, they contribute to the income. But if you were to look at this chart, right, it shows you the different story. You see, a lot of their income actually contributed from their franchisee rental, especially they are able to buy all these attractive property during the economic crisis. Yeah, that's how they make their money actually. So McDonald's. So you were to during your projects, you were to choose McDonald's as a company, right, don't look at it as just a selling burger, but actually the main income actually comes from all this rental, property rental. And you can see that the restaurant itself is less. So they also operate their own restaurant chains, but some of them are through franchise. So you were to look at, you were to choose McDonald's as a company investing in China, right? So you have to analyze whether or not most of their shops are through franchise or their own one, you know. So different country may be different, you know, even McDonald's. Correct? So this one just to share with you. Franchising, huh? Okay, that's why franchising. How about licensing? What's the difference? Can somebody tell me the difference between a franchising and licensing? What is the main difference? They are quite similar, but you know what's the main difference? What kind of industry you get to find company using licensing? Franchising is all the food, hotel chains are very common, right? But what about licensing? What kind of industries? Anyone? Okay, even for Nanyang Poly, we got this innovation stuff, right? From the student, from the staff, and we have some center that develop all these creative products and so on. So as a Nanyang Poly, as an institution, right, even we have developed and patented some of these products, right? We cannot produce them, right? Because we are the